think it's beholden on the clubs, the RFL, and indeed Super League to try something, to do anything to try and innovate a few different options to improve the attendances at games. I think I think we need to try something.
Yeah.
Your idea sounds like a good one, Mark. Maybe it's one of a number that we can try. But I think carrying on as we are is, we're just watching it. These rounds up to the semi-finals just circle the plug hole, really, which is not good.
Yeah, and I also think if the Super League teams were a bit earlier, you feel more like it's a cup run rather than you play 3 games and you're in the final.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think shortening it has done anything for the quality of the competition or the desire to win the competition. I honestly, I don't. I think we'd be better having Super League clubs come in earlier. And again, you and I have talked about this one before, and I know there are drawbacks with it. But if we're concerned about players playing too many games, then let's put a limit on the number of games players can play rather than a limit on the number of games clubs can play, and encourage more junior players to play. And I think that would bring a different aspect of interest into the game. Which games do you play certain players in order to make sure they don't bust their limit? I think we need to think a bit more creatively about that as well, to try and take the burden off some of our players, while still allowing clubs to make money, because there's no doubt that clubs won't want to reduce the number of games they play because they're desperate for money at the moment, particularly after the pandemic.
Yeah, certainly. Well, if anyone's got ideas, you know how to hit us up at Super League Pod on Twitter, message us on our Facebook page, or email superleaguepod@gmail.com. Any ideas you've got on how we can boost attendances, in the Challenge Cup, but also, let's face it, across the whole piece. Let's get back to this game then. Reminder to everyone, 10 minutes ago we were talking about Wigan beating Salford 20-0. Callum Percy 99 said, "What a defensive performance. It was great to see us cut out the penalties and errors from the previous 2 performances. Thought the ref did decent apart from the tackle on Luluai 10 minutes into the second half when he made the break. If it was a penalty for holding down, it should have been a sin bin. Anyway, great performance all round. On to the next round. Although it was a shame about the attendance, I feel like Wigan could have done a lot more to get schools and rugby teams in, etc. And I hope everyone who was moaning and putting in as much effort to buy Saints away tickets bought one tonight. By the way, what a shambles that was. 3 hours, 30 minutes wait. Anyway, guaranteed wire in the next round if they win." Of course, we did draw them, but they didn't win.
Yeah, indeed. So,
yeah. Well, do you know what? I might mention the Saints Good Friday ticket fiasco with Wigan later on in the wrap-up.
Okay, fair enough. So, Matt Speakman said, "A great defensive performance against a pretty poor Salford side. I had hoped for an entertaining 80 minutes, but that will have to wait. For now, being in the hat for the inevitable away tie at Warrington is what matters." Yeah, everyone getting ahead of themselves with the Warrington tie. Matt Peat making his presence felt this season. Shame about KPP. Fingers crossed for him.
Well, we have a bit of news on that, don't we? Because Matt Peat has confirmed that Kai Pearce-Paul will be out for a few months for injury. He's torn some ligaments, so they're waiting on scan results to decide if he needs an operation or just a spell out. But that's bad news for the youngster who was going really well this season.
Yeah, it is. The good news is he's got plenty of time on his side, but it's never. He sort of. I felt there was a breakout year coming for him this year, and that's obviously going to put a bit of a dent in it for him, which is a shame.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a leg injury, isn't it? Groin or around there kind of injury, I think.
Yeah.
So it probably means he'll be bulking up to get back into the pack with all he can do in training his weights on his upper body.
Yeah.
We'll see how he gets on, though.
Yeah.
And White Pie, Lee, who was on the show last week, said, so despite my worries on the podcast last week, we never looked troubled by Salford. A dour game where, by and large, Wigan did the simple things better and made fewer mistakes. Liam Byrne was my man of the match and made meters every time he took the ball in. The only positive for Salford was they kept field quiet, but we shut Snide down. Onwards to the quarter-final and also Hull next week.
Good shout on Liam Byrne. I thought he had the most impressive game I think I've seen him have. He dominated up front early on, and that really set the tone for Wigan, I thought, Mark.
Yeah, I think him and Powell, who combined for the first try, Burns try, I thought they were probably both Wigan's best two players on the night.
Yeah.
Powell was running a bit more from dummy half than we've seen recently. And Byrne, he played his size, which he hasn't always done yet in his career. So I was impressed by him.
Well. Yeah, I thought he was the best prop on the field for sure in that game.
Yeah, no one really impressed me for Salford. I've got to say they were pretty poor. Brodie Croft made a few mistakes. There was a few guys who tried hard, mostly ex-Wigan players. Burgess tried really hard. He got put in some situations where he could nearly make stuff happen, but it was always a bit tough for him. And I thought Jack Wells was quite good when he came off the bench, but his hair's atrocious, so that needs sorting out.
I mean, they really lacked anything in the centre, so they'd obviously decided that they needed to go wide in order to make ground. And in trying to go wide too early, they just made, well, A, didn't make many meters, and B, just made lots of errors, which with Wigan's defence and the far better attack, they were just playing it. I thought they played into Wigan's hands by going down that route. And the further behind they got, the more desperate they got, and it just kind of got worse and worse for them as time went on. Wigan did a very professional job on them, I thought.
Yeah, the back 20 minutes of the first half, Salford clearly were making nothing happen. So you had players start to throw offloads that aren't offloading players. Players like, Alex Gerrard, guys like that are honest, hard-running, hard-defending types, trying to make offloads that were never really on as well. And that was an issue for Salford in the game. There was the offload that Tim Laffey did as well, which was a bit of a speculative one where Sneed knocked on and they had a bit of a go at each other, and then I think Wigan scored not too long after that. The one really sparkling piece of play really in the game was the Bateman try, which I think sealed the game 5 minutes into the second half. Wigan then put the queue on the rack a bit, I felt. Didn't really try much in attack because Wakefield was getting shut down by Salford. You have to give them credit for that. They definitely locked up his space.
Didn't give him much time with the ball. Didn't let him get into his stride.
Yeah, I think he was bottled up in the game, but that Bateman try was great play. From the late offload in the tackle from Cade Cuss to the eyes up play from Powell and Lulawai, and then good play by Hardacre as well, and Bateman there to finish it off. I thought that was an exceptional try, one of the best tries of the round. But I think that kind of is all it was in terms of the game. There was a question mark over the Marshall try, wasn't there? But nothing could provide any sort of evidence at all that anyone had touched the ball, Wigan or Salford, as it went through, and he popped up on it to score. The only other
I thought it was a knock-on, but then again, I wouldn't I?
I couldn't believe it wasn't, but then I couldn't see any pictures that suggested he actually touched it, so it was very strange. The only other talking point is the Lulawai tackle that's led to James Greenwood's injury, hasn't it? So James Greenwood's going to be out for a couple of months with a Liz Frank injury in his foot. Anyone who follows the NFL will know that Liz Frank injuries are incredibly common, like relative to how much I'd ever heard of them before. But it's kind of like the metatarsal injury here, the Liz Frank injury in the NFL seems to be common, but it's like kind of like a bridge of the foot, kind of arch of the foot strain type injury. But yeah, so he's going to be out with that, and Thomas Leuluai got a grade B dangerous contact charge and a 1-match penalty notice from that. I don't know if you had any view on that. I understand on the TV footage they spent 10 minutes trying to make sure Leuluai never played again. Being facetious there. That's what some Wigan fans seem to say.
I thought I was disappointed with the video referee. I can absolutely understand how the referee didn't see it at the time. I mean, it was over in a moment. I thought what was a little bit frustrating, if you're a Salford fan, was the referee. Hicks says we couldn't see what happened properly, and therefore I'm going to put it on report, only to be followed immediately by a clip showing precisely what happened. So it's like, well, how can you not see that? If the VAR didn't see that footage, then something's gone wrong. But if the VAR saw that footage and didn't think it was clear, then something's gone wrong. So I didn't quite understand that, because it was a bad one, and he definitely deserves a ban for it. I just thought I didn't understand why the protocols didn't allow them to do something about it at the time.
I think these ones are quite tough, like on the night, in the moment, for the officials, even the television replay officials, to gauge how bad it is, how difficult, what really went into it all. I know that there was some mention about it being similar to the Albert Vete one in round 1 on Ian Thornley, and I think that, if I remember rightly, that incident was just put on report as well at the time. So I do think these ones where an element of what's happened is the players, the tackling players, kind of put his weight onto the defending player in one way or another. In this one, Tommy he made a legitimate tackle, didn't he? That he sort of half bounced off and ended up, from that tackle that was front on, he kind of then ended up, which is very rare for Tommy not to win that first collision, to be honest. He kind of ended up sliding around and down a bit, didn't he? But he did come off the floor in that. So that's where the similarity with the Vete one comes into play. The Vete one actually got a grade C charge, not a grade B charge. So there has been questions about what's the difference there. And I'm a little surprised that they were seen differently by the match review panel, because there are quite a few similarities in the two instances, and both have led to injuries that are going to keep a player out for a month or two. I actually went back and watched the Vete one, and then watched the Leuluai one again, to try and see if I could see anything that might have meant one was a C and one was a B. One difference I did see was Tommy did make that correct initial contact, and then kind of in the momentum of things kind of ended up where he ended up, whereas Vete, throughout the whole process of his tackle, he grabbed him, jumped off the floor, and it seemed like the injury to Thornley came when Vete was off the floor, but the injury to Greenwood seemed to come kind of after Leuluai. One of his feet was definitely on the floor, definitely not in the air, and it almost seemed like it was when the high tackle came in, which I think just clipped the chin. It was one of them. When that came in, it kind of shifted Greenwood's momentum, and Greenwood's left ankle ended up getting trapped under Tommy's knee, rather than it being from him being when he was in the air, sort of thing. So
I mean, I don't know whether
it kind of looked like it was bad technique to leave the ground, but I think the injury came as a bit more unfortunate.
I think Leuluai's a hugely experienced player, and he's one of the best defenders in the league. I think you could clearly see he came off the floor with both feet around the lower leg area, and I mean, at the time, I saw it very. I mean, as soon as you see the clip, you think that is a ban.
when you see that clip from the back where you see his feet off the floor, definitely. On the first 3 clips from the side and the other side, you couldn't really see it, could you? Yeah.
No, I agree, but the fact that the referee says they couldn't see it properly, and then immediately they showed the clip that showed it very clearly, I'm like, there's something not quite right.